Welcome back. The top story on Al Jazeera. Israel's airstrikes on Gaza are continuing for a second day. The Israeli army says it's just hitting Hamas targets, but the United Nations says 7 of its workers have been killed in a missile attack just outside their headquarters. There are thought to be many more civilians among at least 282 people killed so far. Israel's threatening to escalate its operation if Gaza fighters don't stop firing rockets, including new longer-range missiles over the border.
The UN Security Council has called for an immediate end to all military activities and for all the border crossings to be opened by Israel.
What is needed is for calm to be restored, for humanitarian needs of the people of Gaza to be addressed, and for progress to be made to achieve the solution that is required for normalcy in that region, which is the two-state solution. That is the fundamental requirement for moving forward.
When we talk about a ceasefire after 24 hours of aggression by the occupying power, in which 1,000 Palestinians, most of them are civilians, killed and injured, then the ceasefire is addressing the party that is conducting this aggression against the Palestinian people. It is not the few rockets that are being fired from Gaza against, the Israeli targets. And if Israel not to listen to the wish of the international community to stop its aggression against our people within 24 hours to 48 hours, I can assure you that we, the Arab nations, and our friends in the Security Council and the international community, we will come back knocking on the door of the Security Council in order to bring Israel into compliance.
Well, I'm joined now by Danny Gilliman. He was the Israeli ambassador to the UN from 2003 to 2008. And he's based now in Tel Aviv. Thanks a lot for joining us. Firstly, what's your reaction to what the Security Council said?
Well, I'm not surprised by what the Security Council said. I expect the Security Council wants to see peace, quiet and security along the southern border. This is what we want to see as well. The Security Council called on a ceasefire. A ceasefire is something which we would, of course, welcome, providing it includes the end of rockets and missiles being fired daily at Israeli towns and cities, and the smuggling of arms and the turning of Gaza into a terror base and a launching pad for missiles.
All right,
if that happens, okay, Israel will be very happy to suspend.
Okay, let's be precise now. Who exactly was Israel targeting in Gaza over the past 24 hours? And in your opinion, did Israel hit who it wanted to hit?
Israel was targeting Hamas targets, Hamas headquarters, Hamas facilities and infrastructure. Tragically, Hamas has turned the whole of Gaza into a launching pad for missiles and into a terror base. You know very well that Israel evacuated and left the whole of Gaza over 3 years ago. The Palestinians then had a choice to make it into a place where they will look after their own people and make their life better, or turn it into a terror base. Sadly, they chose the latter, and today, sadly and tragically, some innocent Palestinians may pay the price because they've been held hostage by the Hamas all these years.
Among the 282 dead, Mr. Gilliman, sorry to interrupt you.
And because it has...
Sorry to interrupt you. Among the 282 dead, 7 United Nations Relief and Works Agency students were killed in Gaza. Were they also launching rockets at you?
I'm not saying, and I don't think, that everybody who unfortunately got hurt was launching missiles. The sad tragedy is that the Hamas has turned the whole of Gaza, which, as you know, is a very densely populated place, into a terror base and a launching pad for missiles. If you go to sleep with a missile, don't be surprised if you don't wake up in the morning. The Hamas asked for it, and they got it. And if in this very, very delicate situation, unfortunately and tragically, some civilians are killed, they may be killed by Israeli fire, but truly they are the victims of the Hamas. The Hamas is the one who brought this tragedy onto the Palestinian people. The Hamas is the one who has been shelling for 8 years Israeli cities and villages, kindergartens and schools, and no other country in the world, including no member of the Security Council, would have taken it. Neither would Qatar take it if one of its neighbors shelled it endlessly day after day.
Qatar is not occupied by one of its neighbors, Mr. Gilliman. Qatar has not been occupied for 41 years by one of its neighbors. Qatar has not been occupied by one of its neighbors for 41 years.
Well, neither has Gaza been occupied for over 3 years, and yet the Palestinians choose to turn it into a terror base. They have only themselves to blame. And I'll tell you something which I think you're probably aware of, but you cannot say it, so I will say it for you. I think that many people in Qatar, many people in the Arab world, in the Muslim and Arab world, have very little pity for Hamas. They realize that Hamas brought it unto themselves. They have no regard for human life. They're using their own people as human shields. Okay. And in a way, I think they may even be celebrating the fact that some people innocent people got killed because they think it may be playing in their favor.
Okay, let's look forward now for a second, Mr. Gilliman. Let's look at some of the results of this Israeli offensive, where just under 300 people have died so far. You have a humanitarian disaster in Gaza. I'm sure you'd agree with me on that one. Khalid Mish'al has promised more rockets on southern Israel. He's called for a third intifada. He's called for more suicide attacks. It's very unlikely that Gilad Shalit will be released now by Hamas. Is that any achievement? Haven't we gone backwards?
I don't think we've gone backwards. I think that Israel has done, is doing, and I assure you will continue to do everything it has to do in its responsibility to look after the lives and well-being of its citizens. And we will have to see in a few days' time, or whenever this operation is over, we will then judge the results. At the moment, I think Israel is doing what any democracy in the world would do under these circumstances. In fact, it has shown a restraint which very few democracies would have shown under these circumstances. Khalid Mashal doesn't need any excuses from Israel in order to plan suicide bombings or to kidnap Israeli soldiers or to threaten Israel. He's been doing it for years. He is the mastermind behind some of the most atrocious terror attacks. So he doesn't need any excuses from us to do it. And if we gave him another excuse to be the belligerent, totally notorious terrorist that he is, then we may have given him just another opportunity to show his real face. But he doesn't need any excuse from us to carry on the attacks and the terror attacks against Israel.
Danny Gilliman, former Israeli ambassador to the UN, live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much for sharing.